Batman is a planner. That's why the amount of prep time he is given is a major point to cover when talking about whether or not he can take on another character. So yeah, he is a master strategist and tactician. But you know what Batman really sucks at? Communication. I think most of his interpersonal problems can be attributed to the fact that Batman sucks with other people. But it became an absolutely massive problem when it came to the Tower of Babel storyline. You see, Batman had come up with the contingency plans for all his fellow Justice League members, just in case any one of them, or all of them, are corrupted, become mind controlled, or turn evil. And you know how many times that has happened? Like, a lot. So that kinda makes sense. He's not wrong for doing that. And as an added bonus, all of his plans were to detain and incapacitate only. But Bats didn't tell any of his members about the fact that he had these plans. His need to be in control and the lack of trust he had in his other teammates led directly to Ra's al Ghul stealing his plans, altering them to be deadly, and bringing the League to its knees. At the end of the day, the Justice League felt they just couldn't trust Batman anymore, and they put his membership on the team to a vote. It came to a 3-3 tie, with Superman needing to make the final vote, but before he could, Batman had predicted the vote and decided to leave of his own accord. Now nerds, if you have been diligently watching this channel for a while now, you shall be aware of my disdain for the blight on humanity known as Snapper Carr. This wisecracking teenage honorary member of the Justice League is just the worst. Brought on to the team as like a weird kind of mascot so that this team of adults had some kind of connection to the cool young people, he came in slinging slang and snapping his stupid little snapper fingers. Surprising no one, Snapper started to really fall off in his popularity, so DC wrote him out of the league. Feeling underappreciated because he does nothing and kinda sucks, Carr allowed himself to be duped by a disguised Joker. Carr led him right into the Justice League headquarters at the time and helped the Joker capture Batman. Do you know how bad that is? Joker has done some of his worst things to people much lower on his list than Batman. This was one huge reason the League forever abandoned their longtime base. Needless to say, Carr was booted from the League. Now Snapper Carr is one thing, but he is hardly alone in the land of hate. In the wise words of Yoda, no, there is another. And his name is Guy Gardner. This Green Lantern has one of the biggest egos on the League, so much so that it's led to him being knocked out cold by Batman, laughed at by the rest of the League, and in JLA Secret Files number 2, it got him booted out by Batman himself. Now side note, the way Batman constantly makes a fool of this man is probably my favorite Batman thing ever. This came during the Guy Gardner warrior phase, where he decided to don face paint, knee pads, and walk around with like no shirt all the time. It was really weird, but it also happened to be a time that he thought he could become the leader of the JLA. While Batman and Aquaman were trying to reform the League, Gardner decided to sit and wait for the rest of the League to show up to the headquarters, and then he cockily claimed that as the de facto leader, nobody could eject him from the team. All it took was a good old stare from Batman, and Guy just went right back on his words almost immediately and stormed out of the Justice League. Now one of the conflicts that reared its head in Philip Kennedy Johnson's run on Action Comics, aka Superman's book, was the surprise arrival of Thao La and a group of Kryptonian refugees. These refugees were chased by Mongols' war Zuns, and it resulted in their ship being wrecked in the ocean. However, on board this ship was a powerful cosmic artifact known as the Genesis Fragment. Now since the ship crashed in the ocean, the Atlanteans ended up discovering the fragment. This led to a conflict between both the Atlanteans and the Navy. So, Superman decided to take things into his own hands. Meaning, he took the fragment into his own hands. He took the fragment. In Action Comics number 1035, after saving Thao La, the League show up to the Fortress of Solitude, and Superman guesses that they are there to boot him out of the League. And they are. According to Hippolyta and Hawkgirl, taking the fragment, which technically belongs to Kryptonians, ticked off the Atlanteans, the UN, and the US military, and the League has to work with the world's governments, so he is kicked out of the team. Is it dumb? Incredibly, but Superman was more concerned with saving the captured Kryptonian refugees anyways, so whatever, and he got back on the team. Doesn't matter. Now, the Justice League can only function as the world premier superhero team by adhering to a strict code of ethics, morals, and rules. Unsurprisingly, one of those rules is not breaking people's necks, and Wonder Woman missed the memo on that one. Nah, she actually knew exactly what she was doing. In Wonder Woman number 219, part of Greg Rucka's The OMAC project, which saw Maxwell Lord using OMAC to both control and wipe out metahumans on Earth, Lord used his mind control abilities to turn Superman into a wrecking ball, causing mass destruction. And so, Diana felt that she was left with, quote, no option, and she brutally snapped Lord's neck, ending his earthly existence instantly. This resulted in Batman's brother eye activating and broadcasting her completely stone cold face and actions across the entire world. While Wonder Woman stood by her decision, a lot of the League did not. One of which being Superman, who couldn't even look her in the eye, which is pretty stupid when you think about it. I've seen Man of Steel, Superman. I saw what you did to General Zod. You're not innocent here. But if you think Wonder Woman and Henry Cavill are the only League members who have turned someone's head into a merry-go-round, well, look no further than the trial of Barry Allen. When the Reverse Flash was attempting to take the life of one Fiona Webb, the Flash managed to grab his nemesis from behind at super speed, and this accidentally snapped the villain's neck. This got Barry pretty promptly arrested and charged with manslaughter, and got him put on trial. Similar to Batman during the Tower of Babel, the Justice League are torn right down the middle on whether or not go or stay, leaving it, once again, up to Superman to decide. But unlike Batman, Barry actually waits for Superman's answer, and he waits, because it took 3 issues for Supes to actually reveal his decision. Barry ended up being reduced to a probationary member pending the results of his trial, but Barry decided to take it into his own hands and left the League, leaving him a lot of free time to worry about his actual trial. But that's far from the only time that someone got booted for the old ending of a life thing. In fact, with the Justice League having a no-killing rule, you'd think they wouldn't take on members who are known to do that. But they do. They definitely do. And one of them is Bat family member Huntress. While Batman stands by his no-killing rule, his family members don't necessarily follow suit. And when the JLA villain Prometheus attacks the Watchtower and specifically goes after Barbara Gordon, aka Oracle, Helena decides that he has got to go. And honestly, given how big of a threat Prometheus is, I kinda see why she feels that way. Batman, however, does not feel that way. He stops Helena before she can do the deed and fires her from the League on the spot for even trying. It's cold. And it's a little interesting coming from the guy who beats up regular criminals so bad that they probably have lifelong health issues, but alas, morals. Now, it's kinda surprising that this next one even happened, but it also proves to me that the Justice League clearly don't do any in-depth background checks. And they have Batman and Cyborg, so it should be like super easy. I guess they overlook things when you do something even mildly heroic. Rhonda Pineda, aka Atomica, found herself on the Justice League after she managed to defuse an Atlantean explosive device. That's all it took, and boom, full trust and admiration on the League. Well, if anyone cared to look a little bit deeper, they may have come to find that Atomica was not even from that universe. Atomica hailed from Earth 3, home of the evil version of the Justice League known as the Crime Syndicate of America. And surprise, she was one of their main members. Atomica eventually reveals herself when she plants a virus in Cyborg that turns him into the evil Grid, and she brings her entire crime syndicate to Earth, leading them to take over, and requiring the villains to step up to save the world. Lex Luthor, who led this group of heroic villains, kindly let Atomica know that she was off the League as he squished her under his boot. Now, I know people like to make fun of Aquaman, but people who actually read the comics know that he's kind of a huge badass. One of the most boss moments he had came when he decided to fire basically everyone from the Justice League. Did it go well long term? No, but it was incredibly bold and kind of justified. In Justice League Annual number 2, a JLA satellite got completely destroyed, and it's all because a whole bunch of the Justice League members couldn't actually pull themselves away from their personal issues that they were going through. But this is their job. They have a responsibility that is higher than themselves and their personal problems. Needless to say, Aquaman is pretty peed off. Now, being an original charter member of the League, Aquaman makes a pretty drastic drastic decision when he decides to kick out every superhero who won't promise to commit themselves wholly and exclusively to League activities. This left us with Elongated Man, Martian Manhunter, and Zatanna, which is like a good group but hardly top sellers. This resulted in a completely new league being formed. While you may not agree with his decision, it was incredibly bold, and I think it probably put a few members in their place.
Originally I was going to choose Animal Man to start off today's list, but then I remembered he got an absolutely amazing solo run. So even if he's not super popular, that did give him some recognition. But on the other hand, Marie McCobb, who is the superhero known as Vixen, hasn't really gotten her moment to truly shine yet. This fashion icon, talk show host, and animal activist is able to channel the powers of any animal that has walked or evolved on Earth, similar to Animal Man. But she does it through the mystical object given to her ancestor by the god Anansi called the Tantu Totem. Originally it was shown that the Tantu Totem gave her her abilities, but over time it has been changed so that the totem more just helps hone said abilities. Basically, Vixen has a strong connection to the Red, which is a magical thingy that connects all animal life in DC. Normally, she uses this power for flight and to enhance her speed, strength, senses, and healing abilities. She also sometimes uses the poisonous abilities of certain animals and has even been able to fully transform into animals. Vixen's ability is so incredibly vast that she can use the light of an anglerfish to create a powerful laser, the armor of armored beetles to withstand a punch from Superman, and she could even create a force field using just the energy from the Red itself. Absolutely impressive. One of the wilder concepts of DC's original multiverse was the real world, which was, or used to be just another universe, named Earth Prime. The Flash discovered this in Flash number 179. He stumbled onto Earth Prime and turned to the employees of DC as the only ones who'd believe his story. Julius Schwartz helped him return home, but the machine Flash used to get here stayed at the DC offices. Several years later, DC writers Carrie Bates and Elliot Magan discovered the machine still had enough power left to send Magan to Earth 1, the GLA world, and Bates to Earth 2, the JSA's home. The Criminal Injustice Society took advantage of this by turning Bates into a supervillain, and combining his new powers with his plotting ability, Bates single-handedly took down the Justice Society, then went after the JLA. He did well until Magan shattered his confidence with a few well-placed insults about Bates' writing. The JLA won, the JSA got better, and the duo, now depowered, returned home. I think a writer would have a huge home field advantage against the heroes, so that feels a little unfair, but hey, make of that what you will. Lucas Snapper Carr is quite possibly the most annoying team mascot I have ever seen. Appearing for the first time when the League faced off against Starro, Snapper Carr is characterized by what DC Comics thought would help their comics relate to the youth. Emphasis on thought here. He has a quote-unquote youthful exuberance, incessantly snapping his fingers at everything, and has a tendency to inject really grown-worthy humor into serious situations. Sure, his intentions are usually good-natured, but Snapper Carr has earned a reputation among fans as extremely annoying due to his penchant for making seemingly out-of-place jokes and remarks, even in moments of high tension. His incessant snapping and habit of addressing his peers with nicknames, and like really out-of-touch ones like Daddy-O, can come across as overly casual or inappropriate, undermining the gravity of certain situations. His presence does provide moments of comedic relief, and he remains a distinctive figure in the DC universe, but like only because we all roll our eyes when we see him. For better or for worse. Look pal, if somebody who uses words like cripes and euchred on a regular basis is calling you out of date, then you are. Now I'm not actually too sure if you folks will or won't know Andrew Bennett, aka I Vampire. I think more invested comic book readers likely do know this vampire, but maybe a casual reader or fan of DC might not. Look, as a big vampire fan, obviously this one was in the back of my mind today. Vampires are practically indestructible and can regenerate any damage done by consuming blood. They have superhuman strength, speed, reflexes, stamina, can transform into bats, wolves, rats, and mist, and have enhanced senses and a bit of psychokinesis. Despite that, they do have some major weaknesses that pretty much everybody's aware of, with the big one being the sun, unless they can find a way to temporarily make themselves immune. But for iVampire, he has a peculiar ability to eventually automatically revive himself even after he's killed, even if he becomes a pile of ashes from the sun. This guy survived to the end of the universe. This ability is a bit of a mystery even to Bennett himself. Like when he survived to the end of the universe, it was at the will of the Presence, aka God, leading some to believe that this may be true in all cases, but it's not actually confirmed. In my opinion, he's pretty cool. I love a good vampire moment. Raymond Terrell was apparently born with a condition that didn't allow him any exposure to sunlight, or at least that's what he'd been told. Turns out, Ray was lied to his entire life. In reality, Ray's real father was Happy Terrell, a World War II hero known as the Ray. So turns out Raymond was actually born with the tremendous superpowers that only awaken with light exposure. So upon discovering this power, he went invisible for about 4 years, before saving a friend, turning the assailant invisible, and then restoring them to scare the bejesus out of him. Ray is a being of light and has many abilities as a result. For example, once his body absorbs natural light, as sunlight or artificial light, he can direct the energy to rearrange molecules into any form, matter, or energy. With the projected energy, he can fly, project rays, beams, and bolts of destructive light, and create constructs out of pure light, similar to a Green Lantern's construct. Obviously, he can bend light to make himself or others invisible, but he can also do a similar thing in order to create illusions, and after consuming light energy, he can actually sustain himself off of it, not needing to eat or drink, which is pretty neat for survival purposes. Alright, I'm about to talk about a character who has a lot to do with Aztec mythology, so odds are I will 110% mess up some pronunciations here. Forgive me, folks. Uno, the man who would become Aztec, was trained from birth by the mysterious Q Society, a secret organization dedicated to providing a champion for Quetzalcoatl. His mission is to prepare for the eventual second coming of the dark god Tezcatlipoca. To help with that, Aztec's power comes from the Mask of Warriors, which has been handed down from warrior to warrior over the generations, with their consciousness becoming one with the mask, meaning Aztec can call upon the experience of his predecessors in any situation. Pretty neat. The helmet bestows its wearer with a variety of abilities, including enhanced audio and visual systems like X-ray and infrared vision. It protects the wearer, increasing physical strength, and will even transfer full motor control over to the helmet if the wearer becomes unconscious. The armor can camouflage itself, turning it invisible or reducing the wearer's molecular density. The gauntlets contain energy blasters located in the palms, and launchers hidden in the wrists that can shoot wire nets, cables, or mini rockets. Kinda like Iron Man, the armor's chest piece acts as a power battery for the suit, and also allows the venting of highly destructive energy that can destroy a city block. You know, just casually. The suit also allows him to fly and allows Aztec to travel through space. It also just looks super cool. When the original Justice League was teleported thousands of years into the past and a new league was formed, Faith was one of those premier members. Only she was more like the member. See, the problem with Faith was that she solved pretty much any problem. She would almost always show up with some new power that was exactly what the League needed at any time. When she was part of a Black Ops team before the Justice League, she was literally nicknamed the Fat Lady. No, she's not fat, like it's not because of her physique. It was a reference to the saying, "It ain't over till the fat lady sings," because literally whenever she showed up, the fight was over. So then what was the point of having a team at all? Fans kinda found her boring, since she was basically just a plot device and a waste of a powerful character, which, what a shame. Maxima. You had the potential. You see, Maxima had a power set that put her on par with the likes of Superman. She was also an alien from the planet Almerac. But the problem with Maxima doesn't come from her powers, nothing like that. No, the problem with Maxima is that her planet's population is dwindling, and her #1 goal is finding a man to do the repopulating with. Originally she was like, Superman, that's my perfect mate. So she goes after him, only to be turned down, leading her to join a Superman revenge-based team, and then join the Justice League to try and seduce him. To the shock and surprise of nobody, it didn't work. So then she turned her sights to Captain Atom, and then Amazing Man, and then she bit the dust thanks to Brainiac. She could have been someone, she could have been a contender, but the poor thing was more concerned with finding the perfect mate. Everybody loves a comeback story. When Mystique, a Korean-American woman named Song Barclay, first came onto the scene, she was a pretty low-tiered villain. She wore the armor of her late father, which gave her a masculine-looking physique while in the suit, and she had energy-projecting abilities. Eventually, Martian Manhunter recruited Mystique for his Justice League task force, which, you know, how can you say no to that? Oh, you know, maybe if you suffer from claustrophobia. And for this gal, that's when things get a little problematic. When the Justice League task force had to go into space, our gal panicked, kind of put a hole in the craft, and got sucked out into space, ending her short-lived membership on the Justice League task force. Hank Haywood is a name passed down through several generations of heroes. The original Hank was crippled during World War II, and a scientist used cybernetic upgrades to make him extremely powerful. He took the name Commander Steel, originally just Steel, and became a member of the All-Star Squadron. His grandson, Hank Haywood III, also had to be rebuilt after an injury, and he became the second Steel working with Justice League Detroit. Now, you may know of another hero who uses Steel in his name, John Henry Irons, who just goes by Steel. He stepped up as a hero, taking on an advanced exoskeleton and wielding, among many other things, his kinetic hammer. And he did this following the death of Superman, emulating Superman's beliefs and becoming part of the Superman family. Essentially. Basically, I think because Steel was such a popular character and so damn iconic, Commander Steel just kinda fell off despite being part of the Justice League for many years. Kinda sad, but Steel is awesome, so you know, you win some, you lose.
Father, like son, John Kent is the founder of the new Justice League, so we do have to give him his flowers here. When the Justice League we are used to seeing perishes, John recognizes the world needs a new team of protectors, so he gets straight to work creating a new Justice League. John Kent is Superman's son. He started as Superboy, moved up to Superman, but it was not an easy journey. He was kidnapped and thrown across universes and time, but he also learned a lot, enough to be a sound leader. He is involved invulnerable. He can absorb power from the sun to give himself a power boost. He flies, he has heat vision, he's very strong. He can make himself explode. It's called a solar flare. He expels a lot of energy pretty much. He has the X-ray vision, he's very fast, and there's even more he's capable of that hasn't even been discovered yet. But despite all that, one very specific thing, kryptonite can still have a seriously negative effect on the hero. We have to talk about Damian Wayne, also known as Robin, also known as John's best friend. They started out really rocky, like fighting all the time, interventions, you kinda know the vibe, but eventually grew to be good teammates and friends because they were forced to work together. It makes sense that Damian would be on Kent's new Justice League since they fought as a team so much. Damian is also just someone you want on your team. His resume goes crazy. If you look at the abilities section on his character wiki, it is like a master list of every human-based ability one could ever develop. To rattle off some of these skills we know Damian for: martial arts, disguise, investigation, archery, stealth, sword fighting, and clearly more. In addition to the ridiculously long list of skills, he has the Wand of Clarion, a magic wand that can only be used once. Super useful. One thing that I did find cute about John and Damian's friendship is Damian had a couple years on John when they were younger, and he would not let him forget it. John couldn't be on the Teen Titans with Damian at first because he wasn't a teen like Damian was. Jackson Hyde is Aqualad and an absolute icon. We love him. He's from Atlantis, if you couldn't guess from his name. That also means he can breathe underwater and do all the underwater stuff. Jackson is capable of hydrokinesis, which is the ability to control water mentally. He can actually make things. He made a functioning spear once. He can also blood bend, allegedly, or twist someone inside out, and I don't like that, but humans are like 55 to 60% water, so I guess it makes sense. It's a good thing he is a hero, basically. He is also able to make ice and also melt ice quickly, and I do have questions. Could he melt Mr. Freeze or Iceman? I know he's Marvel, but it's a fun question to ponder. He can be like a toaster in a bathtub, capable of electrokinesis or emitting bioelectric shocks from his body. When released all at once, it creates a big blast. Fun fact, he is really good in combat because he was trained by Robin. The new team had 2 Blue Beetles, Blue Beetle squared, but we will start with Jaime Reyes. Reyes is a young, energetic hero who was minding his business, trying to get through school, but then one day, him and his friends found a scarab floating in the river, so of course they investigate, and the thing attaches itself to Reyes. Now, he is the host for this scarab. Throughout his hero lifetime, he has joined the Justice League International and of course John's new Justice League. The scarab gives the kid the majority of his powers in the form of a super suit, of course, the Blue Beetle armor. The armor can change shape, used mainly to create weapons, wings, and to look cool. He can also manipulate energies in the suit, making energy shields or energy pulses that cause serious damage to anything in close vicinity to the hero. So that is one of the Blue Beetles. The other Blue Beetle, that is Theodore Cord. He's a bit low on self-esteem, but he's got the spirit. He's also the benefactor to Reyes Blue Beetles, so they are connected in more than just the name. He is very intelligent and a skilled inventor, and also the heir to a company, so he is in a place to be a benefactor. Theodore developed a super suit, but wasn't superheroing. He was holding back because heroes without a set name or a clear look would sometimes just be assigned silly names, and his confidence was already very low. I don't know if he would survive that, but as fate would have it, an interaction with his neighbor, the Golden Age Blue Beetle, would have him taking up that mantle in no time. Theodore would end up joining Justice League International and Kent's new Justice League. A hero we will talk about next, Booster Gold, is Theodore's best friend. They started out as not friends at all, but they are at friendship bracelet level now. There was once a time when Theodore was offered a spot on the Justice League proper, and he gave it up because Booster Gold wasn't invited. That's a friend for life right there, and I hope nothing bad ever happens to them. Booster Gold, let's get into the time-traveling 25th century, maybe 31st century disaster. Michael Carter is not really a disaster anymore, but the start of his hero's journey certainly was. He was a college football player in the 25th century, and he was really good, but his mom was sick. To cover her medical bills, he would gamble on his games, and that didn't go over well as Michael was found out and banned from football. He became a night janitor at a museum and then robbed said museum, then arrived in the 21st century with the intention of becoming a big hero. He was selected to lead the Justice League International and then later joined Kent's League. As just Michael, he he is just a guy. But most of his powers come from his equipment. He has a Legion flight ring, so therefore he can fly. Bet you didn't see that coming. His power suit makes him extra strong and is very good at protecting his body. Getting shot at means absolutely nothing to that suit. He is also capable of producing a force field. He wears gauntlets that project energy and a visor to give him X-ray vision. Dr. Light has joined the Super Squad and she does not come to play. She's connected to the light of creation, meaning she can control light, manipulate it to her will. This is known as photokinesis. Dr. Light didn't tap into the full extent of her powers for a long time, but then she entered the orrery of worlds and all bets were off. She put the power to good use. Team Justice Incarnate was exorcised of the Great Darkness in no time. I think it's cool how she can absorb Kryptonian heat vision because technically, yeah, that is a form of light. She can also throw it back at people or things and it might even be more powerful than when it was absorbed. She can project light blasts and turn herself into light. She is literally the sun. When she does turn into light, she can pass through transparent material like glass. She also can fly because she is that girl. Dr. Light was once married to a supervillain who also went by Dr. Light at one point. They divorced and she ended up looking back on the relationship with disdain. She also joined Kent's new league. Lady Gaga, also known as Harley Quinn, joined Kent's new league. It really is just like the strangest assortment of heroes, but I kinda love it. Harley was a good choice for the team. She is just the right amount of unhinged. She is immune to most poisons, but she is allergic to cats, which I think is very, very tragic, and I'm so sorry, girl. She can fight, she can flip, she can fire any form of weapon, and she is sneaky. Having Harley on the team was a real asset, but also a problem at first because she spent most of her life as a villain, and Black Adam told League leader John that his team wasn't ready to fight because he had former villains on his team. I think we should give people a second chance, but that is just me. Harley was also part of another league called the Justice League of Wisdom, created to counter the Omega Titans. Reformed villain Frost seems super cool, pun intended. She has one of those names that you know what's going to happen to her. Her name is Caitlin Snow. It would be more surprising if she didn't get ice-based powers at some point. So she is a scientist and she was working on this engine, but then the engine was going to be used by evil people and that's not allowed. So Caitlin ripped out the wires to the engine's coolant system. She did a good thing that resulted in a pretty bad thing for her. She ended up bonded to ice. She craves heat, so that means heat vampire absorbs it from those around her. If she doesn't do this, her body starts shutting down. Usually it's a harmless thing, but one time she was locked in a freezer purposefully by a villain, and she was only able to get herself back to a livable state by almost absorbing all of someone else's heat. Frost joined Suicide Squad for a minute there, but her heart lies with heroes, so she joined the new Justice League of America soon after. Frank is a good one to know, but you might know him as Frankenstein's monster. This guy has joined the Justice League Dark and Justice League United, so he has range. For a long, like a few major world conflicts long time, Frank fought with Shade, even becoming a leader in a Shade project, but things started getting rocky with the relationship, so when the opportunity to join the Justice League Dark showed, he took it. Frank stuck around until it disbanded during New 52. Frank is going to be around for a long time since he is undead. He is also then immortal, but on top of that, he doesn't need to eat or breathe or drink. The undead guy has fought in too many wars to count and has won too many battles to count. As a zombie, he is very strong and his stamina is amazing. He is good with most weapons, his hands, guns, and swords especially. The only downside that comes with his Frankenstein status is that he can't heal. So if any injury happens and it's severe enough, he has to replace the whole section with a new body part, Frankenstein style. Frank seems like a super interesting character and I can't wait to see even more of him.
The amount of fallouts that Batman has had with the Justice League, you kinda knew there was a possibility he might end up on this video, and well, here he is. Batman has an interesting relationship with the League. Like many others on this list, Batman is prone to doing things his way first. He's also ultra aware of threats and he knows the danger of an out-of-control Justice League. I don't believe he hates his teammates, except for the occasional Green Lantern, but Batman is just someone who isn't quick to trust others, and even then he will still plan against you just in case. That rubs some people the wrong way, especially when Batman is not always a great communicator to begin with. It's kinda funny for how charming and personable Bruce Wayne can be sometimes. He really is not a people person as Batman, and if others don't see his way of thinking, as the Justice League has not on multiple occasions, Batman has no problem with just walking away. Heroes have a lot of responsibilities. Kings also have a lot of responsibilities. So imagine being both. You need to have priorities, and it can understandably be quite annoying frustrating when your teammates don't seem to know which priorities should come first. Aquaman was an original charter member of the Justice League. He's been around since the very beginning. He's also the king of Atlantis, with his top priority being his people. Therefore, when the other League members were prioritizing their own personal problems over League activities when Aquaman is balancing all of the above and still being a League member, he understandably decided, hey, what the heck? And he disbanded the League to form the Detroit League. That would actually take it all seriously. That ultimately failed, but Aquaman has had many other falling outs with the League for various different reasons, his loyalty to his own people first being one of the biggest ones. Now, I wouldn't say that Booster Gold hates the Justice League necessarily. I would say that there is a little bit of resentment there though. Booster Gold is a football star from the future, and he became a hero by stealing other heroes' stuff from a museum and going back in time. With that kind of origin story, he isn't really greatly respected by the other heroes, and oftentimes isn't taken very seriously by them either. It was actually a plot point in the Countdown to Infinite Crisis where he and Ted Kord, Blue Beetle, felt they weren't taken seriously enough by the Justice League. But the thing is that even though, yes, Booster Gold didn't really start off on the best foot, he has since had to deal with some pretty serious threats to the world, those dear to him, and to the whole entire time stream. He's purposely had to sacrifice people and his own morality and pride for the continuation of reality, and while he may be respected for that by some, it wasn't always a lot of Justice League members. John Constantine is a bit of a black sheep. Okay, he's a lot of a black sheep. Constantine is very much punk, non-conforming, he breaks the rules. That kind of thing doesn't really fly in the Justice League, or most teams for that matter. So, while Constantine has teamed up with others before and has been on the Justice League Dark, the fact that rules can attempt to stop him from doing what is needed to actually save the day is not really something he respects. Similar to Booster Gold, Constantine has had to make the absolute hardest choices possible for the ultimate good, but unlike Booster, John doesn't really crave acceptance from those who oppose his morals. Even on the Justice League Dark, John betrayed the team to do what some would argue was the right thing. He's understandably jaded, and others kind of have to put up with him because he's just that good. Now, I don't know if Lobo really hates the Justice League, but let's be honest, Lobo doesn't really belong on a team at all. I mean, for starters, the guy is powerful enough to do what he needs to do all by his lonesome, but that's kind of the point. He can already do a lot by himself, and that's kind of how he likes it. Lobo is absolutely an anti-hero, if anything, and he's an incredibly reckless one as he can survive pretty much anything. He's too unpredictable to make for a good teammate, and when he's on a team, he's just causing endless arguments with his teammates. Though he gets a lot of respect from other heroes, notably Batman, who also still thinks of him as too unpredictable, it doesn't mean any of them like working with him, and he doesn't really love working with them either. Guy Gardner, being a Green Lantern, is quite a powerful hero, but he can sure be a bit of a hot-headed jerk sometimes. It feels like Guy thinks that Guy is best, and with a name like Guy, that was never going to be the reality. Guy is an alum of the Justice League International and is infamously its most hated member. Guy once tried to insist that between himself and Batman, he should be the one leading that team, but he did it in the most bratty, annoying way possible. So much so that it led to Batman knocking him out cold and the rest of the team just carrying on without him. I think ever since then, Guy pretty much hated everything. While you can't deny his usefulness from time to time, Guy is just kind of a jerk. He mocks his teammates and is pretty reckless, leading the League to go to other Green Lanterns before him if they can, and leaving Guy to have a much better time just being a Green Lantern away from the Justice Leagues of all kinds. Now, if we included Batman on this list, why not one of his proteges? Jason Todd has a dark past, being the most disliked Robin before being snuffed out and then revived with a vengeance, going on a killing spree, and then becoming an incredibly troubled anti-hero. He's had a long path to redemption, and while he has toned down quite a bit, traditional morally golden Justice League teams are still something that just ain't gonna gel. As a bit of an outsider himself, Red Hood works best on a team like the Outsiders, who he has led. The League of Assassins, All Cast, and the Bat Family, these kind of teams are more Red Hood's people, and even then, his violence-first mentality and recklessness still gets him in trouble with his peers. The Justice League are just not willing to get their hands dirty, and he can't agree with that approach. Christopher Smith, who is better known as Peacemaker, thinks that the Justice League get just way too much credit. Based on his experience and the situations he finds himself in, the Justice League are a bunch of powerful dudes who show up too late. This is evident especially in the Peacemaker show. He believes the League show up after all the heavy work is already done. In the comics, he's recently been charged by Amanda Waller with taking out metahumans, and he had no qualms about doing it, as he has no qualms about taking any life in the name of peace. But of all the heroes he encountered, Roy Harper Arsenal was like the only League member he seemed to actually respect, and that was just for his skill. One of the weirdest things to ever happen was when Lex Luthor joined the Justice League and actually became a hero. After the events of Forever Evil, when the Crime Syndicate of America, an evil version of the Justice League from Earth 3, invaded the main continuity Earth and took out the Justice League, and Lex Luthor rallied a group to save the day, he then went on to join the Justice League, and the League let this happen just to keep their eyes on him. Lex obviously is the nemesis of Superman and has often been the enemy of the whole League, and hates Supes and almost anyone who holds what he believes is his place as the most powerful person on Earth. But he is incredibly intelligent, and he knows how to use anyone to achieve his goals, which surprisingly are sometimes darkly for the greater good and to achieve a more prosperous humankind, as long as he stays on top. And lastly today, for the longest time, including Black Adam on a list of superheroes was a no-no, because he isn't what a lot of people would define as a superhero. But over time he has dabbled in being heroic. It's just for Black Adam, he just has a different, some could say older idea of what justice means. And it's not whatever the Justice League dishes out. Again, much like a lot of other characters in this video, Black Adam has his own way of doing things, and being as powerful as he is, there are very few who can stop him or stand in his way, and the Justice League have tried to be the ones to do so on way too many occasions. Specifically, whenever he tried to enforce his brand of justice outside of his own country of Kahndaq. That's the other thing. Like Aquaman, Black Adam is a leader, and he's also surprisingly a family man. And he prioritizes his country and his family and his ideals over almost anyone else. Number 10, Sailor Mars. Okay, so this is a little short moment, but it shows us a side to Bruce Wayne and Martian Manhunter that I didn't think any of us knew existed. In JLA issue number 27 in 1999, there is a single page. Bruce Wayne is meeting with Clark Kent and a mystery woman who Clark introduces as Hino Ray, and she greets Bruce. In the very next panel, we find out that this woman is actually John Jones, the Martian Manhunter in disguise. How do we know that? Well, Batman says that while the accent was flawless, the name was a dead giveaway. Now this may fly right over your head, it did for me at first, but Rei Hino is the name of Sailor Mars from Sailor Moon. That means Batman, Bruce Wayne, billionaire and mass detective vigilante who has mortally wounded characters like Darkseid and beats criminals to a pulp with his bare hands, and Martian Manhunter, a literal Martian with powers that are stronger than Superman and who is millions of years old and has dealt with the extinction of his own species, both watched Sailor Moon and are big enough fans to use and recognize a name from the show, and not even the name of the main character. That's nuts. Number 9, of America. As of the New 52, the team's official name is now just the Justice League. The Justice League of America was an entirely different government-sponsored team of heroes working under Amanda Waller and Steve Trevor. Waller's original plan is for each member of the Justice League of America to serve as a counterpart to a member of the main Justice League team and be able to engage them in case they were to go rogue. This team consisted of Catwoman, Dr. Light, Green Arrow, Green Lantern Simon Baz, Hawkman, Katana, Martian Manhunter, Stargirl, and Vibe. While they were brought together to defend America from superhuman threats of all kinds, unknown to even them, they were secretly in training to take down the Justice League. Some of its members would form the Justice League United after this team disbanded, which also disbanded, and Batman would create another JLA for heroes who wanted a fresh start. But the main Justice League will continue to be just that. The Justice League. Number 8, Justice League International. So that's the Justice League of America, but there are a few other Justice League teams that I think are worth noting. The United Nations Head of Intelligence Andre Briggs launched a team called the Justice League International as a publicly sponsored superhero initiative. They were established specifically to protect the Earth and restore faith in its government, using the Hall of Justice as their headquarters. This team includes Booster Gold as their leader, with August, General and Iron, Fire, Godiva, Guy Gardner, Ice, Rocket Red, and Vixen. Their first mission was against the Signalmen, advanced robot scouts of an alien race that were buried for millennia before their activation. The Signalmen alert Paraxis, a fearsome galactic conqueror, to Earth's presence, and naturally, he captures the entire League and announces his plans to destroy Earth, then harvest its resources for scraps, like you do. By learning to work as a team though, the Justice League International are able to neutralize Paraxis and disable the Signalmen. Having completed their first mission successfully, Booster appeals to the UN and they are finally given public support. Yay! Number 7. Justice League Dark. While there are other teams we could talk about, I think the last Justice League inspired team I want to mention today is the Justice League Dark, possibly one of the coolest teams in my opinion. Justice League Dark is a branch of the Justice League dedicated to dealing with mainly mystical and supernatural threats. Its founding members include Deadman, John Constantine, Madame Xanadu, Shade, the Changing Man, and Zatanna. They were first brought together by Madame Xanadu when she foresaw a terrible future and to stop the Enchantress when she went on a rampage after being separated from her host, June Moon. Kinda similar to the first Suicide Squad movie, except not dumb. The whole team met for the first time in their final battle with Enchantress, which ended when Constantine bonded her to June Moon again, protecting hundreds of others. When Xanadu then tried to rally them as a team, they were pretty much all not about it. But eventually, because DC had to sell comics, Constantine, Deadman, Shade, and Zatanna begun having horrible nightmares and visited Xanadu again, who revealed that these were visions of what would come if they would not form a team, and they became the Justice League Dark. I hate saying Xanadu, I'm not going to say that ever again. Number 6. Batman's Hit List. This is probably a bit more of a well-known fact for DC Comic fans, but for some more lax readers, they may be surprised to know that Batman has a plan for how to defeat each member of the Justice League, including himself, if any of them should go rogue. This became the central plot for a story called The Tower of Babel, where Ra's al Ghul steals these plans and with it, he brings the Justice League to their knees. To defeat Superman, he creates a form of red kryptonite that turns the Man of Steel's skin transparent, causing a sensory overload from the Earth's sun. For Wonder Woman, he creates nanites that lock the Amazonian in a virtual reality where she squares off against an opponent who is her equal until she perishes from exhaustion. The Flash is targeted in the back with a vibrabullet, causing epileptic seizures that, due to his abilities, happen at light speed, making him completely inert. Green Lantern is hypnotized into thinking he is blind, so the ring, which acts upon his will, makes him blind. Batman's Aquaman exploit uses the Scarecrow's fear toxin to induce hydrophobia, making him afraid of the very water that powers him. He does something similar to Martian Manhunter, but with fire, using nanites that cause him to experience perpetual combustion. Plastic Man's unique physiology means covering him in liquid nitrogen and freezing him is the best way to bring him down, and the villain takes this a step further and smashes him with a hammer. And lastly, the way to defeat the Dark Knight is to steal someone he cares for or to distract him. But in the animated version of this story, he actually says his contingency was the rest of the League, and Superman specifically, which I like way more. Number 5. Wonder Woman. Now to preface this, it's more of a Justice Society fact, but it's kind of nuts and has to do with a founding Justice League member. Nowadays, Wonder Woman is a symbol. One of the most powerful beings on the earth and its strongest warrior is Wonder Woman. She represents feminine power, but comics have been around for a long time and before things became a bit more fair. When Wonder Woman first joined the Justice Society of America, the Justice League's predecessor by 20 years, she was just an honorary member and was given the grand role of the Secretary. The most powerful woman in the world reduced to a gender stereotype position. Wonder Woman made her first appearance in All-Star Comics number 8 and she was, quote, allowed to appear without a solo series of her own as long as she remained the Secretary, beginning in the 13th issue. From 1942 to 1947, the position remained, and luckily, it didn't last forever. Number 4. Mini-Me. Back in the day, while Superman was a fairly new being, he would kind of have whatever superpower he wanted / needed at the time, until eventually his set table of powers was established. But there is one new power that appeared in 1958's Superman number 125, where Superman learned to fire a tiny version of himself out of his hands. After discovering a tiny spaceship that blows up in his face, Superman loses all of his abilities minus, interestingly enough, his invulnerability. Luckily though, he gained the ability to literally fire a doll-sized version of himself out of his hand that had all of his powers and would go and beat up criminals or melt icebergs. What's hilarious is that Superman even got kinda jealous of the little mini-him. When a guided missile was on its way to the Eiffel Tower, he sent out his little buddy and an onlooker shouted, "How cute!" To which Superman said, "Cute? What nonsense!" Fortunately though for Superman, his mini-me was destroyed by a kryptonite meteorite and Superman's powers were restored. This wasn't the only weird power though. The face of the Justice League and DC Comics has also had the power to shapeshift, control minds, phase through matter, perform hypnosis. He had super ventriloquism, telekinetic vision, and something called, quote, super imagination. All at different points and for various different stupid reasons. Number 3. Marvel's version. It may surprise a few people to know that Marvel has a version of the Justice League. Sort of. Existing on a parallel world to the main Marvel universe, the Squadron Supreme debuted in Avengers number 85 and were pretty obviously a riff on DC's Justice League. Now this team had actually existed in a villainous form in the Squadron Sinister, but its team members were the same, just evil. The members included Hyperion for Superman, Nighthawk for Batman, and Dr. Spectrum for Green Lantern. Later on, more Justice League adjacent characters such as Power Princess for Wonder Woman and Amphibian for Aquaman rounded out the squad. The Avengers, having already met the Squadron Sinister, were obviously a wee bit skeptical, but the heroic teams worked things out. It doesn't change the fact that comic books got a comic book, and every time they met after that, they still wound up punching each other in the face. DC was actually quite upset about this after Marvel released a Squadron Supreme solo series and threatened to sue them. But unfortunately for DC, the Squadron had been around so long, the statute of limitations made this pretty much impossible. Besides, the book sold like garbage anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Number 2. Justice Buster. If you thought Batman having a list of ways to take out the Justice League's individual members was shocking, it's not his only method. Enter the Justice Buster. In the Endgame story, the Joker has twisted the other members of the Justice League with his Joker toxin, meaning we get to see Batman take them all on using this incredibly advanced suit. A suit which Batman invested more money into than 60% of the world invests into their militaries. It has the processing speeds to mark super speedsters such as the Flash, allowing him to aim and trap them with frictionless technology, causing them to slip and lose control. It has a, quote, bind of veils, which basically plays mind games on the opponent to make them think they've won, which is what it did to Wonder Woman before Batman knocked her out cold. It fires a foam made up of magnesium carbonate at Aquaman that envelops him and drains him of the moisture in his body the more he struggles. It has a citrine neutralizer for use against Green Lanterns, but I think a lot of its systems go towards one hero specifically, Superman. It has force fields that deflect optic beams and thrusters and thermals to deter frost breath. But the coolest thing, the suit is also outfitted with, quote, miniaturized red suns on each of its knuckles. I have no idea how this works, but red suns are like kryptonite to Superman, so having them in the knuckles makes for an awesome Superman sock and bopper. And then when Superman does break through, a spit from a Batman chewing kryptonite chewing gum renders Superman completely defeatable. And finally, in at number 1 is Just Imagine. We've talked about some Marvel DC facts already, but one of my absolute favorite has to do with a little collaborative project. Most people know about DC and Marvel's Amalgam Comics, but what I want to talk about is when in the early 2000s, DC gave Marvel Comics creator Stan Lee the chance to completely reimagine a large number of DC superheroes in the Justice League, and they released these books under a new imprint called Just Imagine. We got totally new versions of Batman, who is framed for his police officer father's passing and goes to prison before becoming a wrestler and then a superhero. Wonder Woman, who is an activist in Peru and wields the Tapak Yari that gives her powers. Superman, who is an alien lawman named Salden who followed his wife's killer back to Earth. Green Lantern, who was an elemental hero given powers by the Tree of Life Yggdrasil. The Flash, who was a woman named Mary Maxwell who was infused with hummingbird DNA, which I have no idea how that works. Shazam, who was a guy who could turn into a demon, and Aquaman, a marine biologist who was exposed to a strange glowing green substance and gained the ability to transform himself into living, quote, hard water. There were even more characters than that, but Stan wrote a JLA book that brought these characters together as a team, and it's all just super great. Number 10, the Apalexians. Superman's code against killing has been a fundamental part of his character for decades. When he does take someone's life, it's usually a big deal, like the end of the 2013 Man of Steel movie, or when he took out 3 Kryptonian criminals in Superman number 22. And then there's Justice League of America number 9. The story is a flashback as the team tells the insufferable Snapper Carr how they first came together fighting aliens from the planet Appalax. These aliens decided to come to Earth as a battleground for a war of succession to spare their own planet the damage, which is kind of rude. In the story, Superman is fighting an Appalachian that is composed of diamond. So, of course, Superman reverses his old trick of squeezing coal into diamonds by instead rubbing the alien's diamond body until it turns into coal and passed into the afterlife. When Snapper Carr asks how that's even possible, Superman quips that he, quote, rubbed the diamond creature the wrong way. That's messed up. That's really messed up. Man. Number 9. Society is so 1940. In the lead up to deciding to create a new superhero team, DC had created successful new versions of Golden Age heroes like Hawkman, Green Lantern, and Flash. This meant that a new version of the Golden Age Justice Society of America was a logical next step, but unlike the heroes, the name had to change. Julius Schwartz spoke about the use of the word society, saying, quote, "To me, society meant something you found on Park Avenue." In The Amazing World of Comics number 14, he continued, quote, "I felt that league was a stronger word, one that readers could identify with because of baseball leagues. And that was the rationale that led to the Justice League of America. After beating the Appalachians in the origin story, the heroes discuss forming a, quote, club or society before Flash sums up their mission statement as forming a, quote, league against evil. Number 8. Atom's Chair. In Justice League of America number 14, the JLA unanimously votes for the 6-inch high crime-fighting Atom to be the newest member. The JLA return to their HQ after a battle with a villainous Mr. Memory, and the Atom attends his first ever JLA meeting. At that very meeting, he discovers that while everyone else, who is normal-sized, has a chair, he does too. A tiny itty-bitty little chair down on the floor, forcing him to make eye contact with everyone's ankles. It is absolutely hilarious, but of course, the Atom is kind of bummed, understandably, until someone tells him to press the button on the arm of the chair, and surprise, the chair is designed to fly up until Atom's at face level with the rest of the team. He kept this little flying chair for a hot minute, and it's adorable. Number 7. Heroes versus writers? One of the wilder concepts of DC's original multiverse was the real world, which was just another universe named Earth Prime. The Flash discovers this in Flash number 166, when he stumbled into Earth Prime and turned to the employees of DC Comics as the only ones who'd believe his story. Julius Schwartz helped him return home, but the machine Flash used to get here stayed at the DC offices. Several years later, DC writers Cary Bates and Elliot Maggin discover the machine still has enough power left to send Maggin to Earth 1, the JLA's home, and Bates to Earth 2, the JSA's home. The Criminal Injustice Society took advantage of this by turning Bates into a supervillain. Combining his new powers with his plotting ability, Bates single-handedly took down the Justice Society of America, then went after the JLA. He did well until Maggin shattered his confidence with a few well-placed insults about Bates' writing. The JLA won, the JSA got better, and Maggin and the depowered Bates returned back home. I kind of think a writer has a huge home field advantage against the heroes. It kind of feels a little unfair, but hey, that's the plot, I guess. Number 6. First villain. Despite how ridiculous the idea of a massive starfish-looking alien that can control minds is, Starro the Conqueror is still one of the Justice League's earliest and most dangerous foes. All the way back in The Brave and the Bold, issue 28 from 1960, that's our first ever introduction to Starro. This was before he used starfish facehuggers to control minds, and instead, he would use a telepathic beam to control huge scores of people. When Starro did this to a town of people using one of his deputies, the Flash happened to take note of the fact that one kid, Snapper Carr, possibly the most annoying kid to grace the pages of comics, was immune to the effects of Starro's mental control. But it was a mystery as to why. But it turned out that Snapper was covered in calcium oxide lime from when he was working on the lawn earlier in the day. Lime, used by oystermen to fight starfish off of their oysters, also happens to block the powers of Starro, curiously enough, and so Green Lantern grabs a bunch of barrels of the stuff from a nearby farm, and the Flash grabs bags and bags of it from a chemical warehouse, and the team proceed to absolutely cover Starro in the stuff, imprisoning the Conqueror in an unbreakable shell of lime. As it says in the comic, a living statue of lime. Damn. Starro would make several more appearances over the years, during which he would take over both New York and London, fight the Avengers, enslave galaxies, and in one alternate future, conquer the entire universe. And he's a starfish. It's weird. Number 5. Aquaman disbanded the team. In 1984, the JLA went through its biggest shift when Aquaman threw a hissy fit and kicked out all the coolest characters, probably because he was the least cool. After most of the original members failed to help fend off another alien invasion, Aquaman makes the call to dissolve the League and rewrite its charter. The new rules decreed that only heroes who could devote their full time to the JLA could be admitted as members. What was left was an entirely new and stupid Justice League consisting of Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, who is awesome, Zatanna, who is also awesome, Elongated Man, who is also awesome, and a crop of teenage heroes no one cared about named Vibe, Steel, not the Superman Steel, Vixen, and Gypsy. Those last two were the first non-white heroes to be on the team way past the time that Marvel did it. Aquaman then moved the team to Detroit. This was DC's effort to try and make its offerings seem more hip and contend with Marvel's youthful X-Men, so for some reason we got a lot of scenes involving breakdancing. But surprisingly, even with breakdancing, it was not a success. Boo. Number 4. Snapper. Lucas Snapper Carr is quite possibly the most annoying team mascot I have ever seen. Appearing for the first time when the League faced off against Starro, like we just talked about, Snapper Carr is characterized by what DC Comics thought would help their comics relate to the youth. He has a quote, youthful exuberance, incessantly snaps his fingers at literally everything, and has a tendency to inject really groan-worthy humor into serious situations. Sure, his intentions are usually good-natured, but Snapper Carr has earned a reputation among fans as extremely annoying, due to his penchant for making seemingly out-of-place jokes and remarks, even in moments of high tension. Kind of like watching a Marvel movie. His incessant snapping and habit of addressing his peers with nicknames and really out-of-touch ones like Daddy-O came across as overly casual or inappropriate, undermining the gravity of certain situations. His presence does sometimes provide moments of comedic relief, and he remains a distinctive figure in the DC universe, but like, only because we all roll our eyes when we see him, for better or worse. Number 3. They created the Fantastic Four. Right from the start, the Justice League of America raked in the cash for DC Comics. All that money rolling in caught the eye of their competitors, and specifically publisher Martin Goodman and his Timely Comics, the predecessor to Marvel Comics. Goodman ordered his chief writer, a guy by the name of Stan Lee, I think, to follow their example and come up with their own superhero team. Lee teamed up with artist Jack Kirby, and together the two fused minds and pen to create Marvel's first family. Fantastic Four #1 was created, a moment that is considered the birth of modern Marvel Comics. The monumental success of that series led to the creation of a bunch of other heroes, including Iron Man, Thor, and the Incredible Hulk, which in turn, after a delay in the printing of Daredevil #1, Stan Lee doubled down on the Justice League's winning formula and put those characters together to create the Avengers. Number 2. Black Canary. Black Canary has a very weird time in DC Comics and in the Justice League specifically. For starters, the character was created in 1947, so by 1983, DC was having trouble explaining why she still looked to be in her early 20s. To fix that, in Justice League of America number 220, DC revealed that the then current Black Canary was actually, get this, the daughter of the original and was kept in unconscious stasis due to her uncontrollable sonic scream while she grew up, and she just had her no longer with us mother's memories downloaded into her blank brain. As you can imagine, DC canned that idea pretty soon after and would rather you just forget it happened altogether. But then in 1988, a story established Black Canary as a founding member of the Justice League instead of Wonder Woman, which was quite possibly one of the weirdest choices DC could have made. No hate on Black Canary, but instead of Wonder Woman? I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know. And finally, in at number 1, it's an Oreo addiction. Martian Manhunter is actually addicted to a brand of cookies in the DC universe called Chocos, which are similar to Oreos, and honestly, yeah, I totally understand this. He first acquires a taste for the delectable cookie when he isn't working on monitor duty. Basically, anytime he isn't working, he's eating from a bag of Chocos, and becomes something of a joke to his fellow Justice League members. Booster Gold, and Blue Beetle specifically, decide to play a joke on the Martian, so they take his remaining supply of Chocos and purchase the entire stock of Chocos from every retailer in the city. Which is nuts. When John discovers his Chocos are missing, he freaks the heck out and has a massive super tantrum. When he does, his shape-shifting abilities go into overdrive and he hulks out and goes berserk. He tears through the city looking for Chocos, and as he does, his intellect declines. He becomes so brutish and damaging, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle decide they have to lure him to a warehouse to calm him down with their stash of cookies. It's eventually revealed that Chocos contain a chemical that causes a narcotic-like response in Martians. Eventually, however, Martian Manhunter figures out a way to exorcise the dependency from Chocos.
At number 10, it's kind of obvious, Aquaman. One might overlook the depths of appreciation for Aquaman within the Justice League. Sure, his capability to communicate with marine life might seem pretty niche, but let's reel in the bigger picture. The oceans cover about 70% of our planet, harboring uncharted territories and mysteries. Aquaman isn't just some guy who talks to fish. He's the bridge between those two worlds, a literal middle ground between humanity and the mysterious deep. His trident isn't just a fancy fork, you guys. It controls tides, wields immense power, and symbolizes authority. I mean, just think about it. The Justice League isn't just about battling supervillains, it's also about safeguarding Earth's entire spectrum, both above and below the waves. So perhaps it's finally time we give Aquaman the recognition he deserves for his role as an unsung guardian of not just our cities, but also our oceans. If you're enjoying the video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. I really appreciate it. At number 9, Dr. Light. Dr. Light, no, not the villainous one. We're shining a light on Kimiyo Hoshi, the heroic version. During Crisis on Infinite Earths, Hoshi got a cosmic power-up courtesy of the Monitor. But she didn't just twiddle her thumbs after that. Oh no, she actually joined forces with John Kent's League. Fast forward to a mission with Damian Wayne where her true potential ignited. She latched onto her powers like a life buoy in the Sea of Trouble, seizing the Great Darkness's link to the Dark Army. And using her cosmic juju, she was able to keep the wonky multiverse in check. Like, imagine the multiverse like a Jenga tower on a shaky table. That's Dark Crisis for you. But thanks to Dr. Light's intervention, that tower stood up tall. At number 8 is Martian Manhunter. When it comes to the Justice League, we often find ourselves focusing on the big names like the iconic Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, but let's not forget about the underrated gem in the lineup, Mr. Martian Manhunter. John Johns, as he's known on his Mars block, boasts an impressive record. He's been a steadfast member since the League's inception, a fact that might even surprise the most dedicated fans of the superhero world. While he took a brief hiatus to deal with his own rogues gallery in Metropolis, Martian Manhunter proved his mettle when the chips were down. The Dark Army threat called him back into action alongside his super buddies, and there he stood resolute and ready. In an ultimate showdown, he, like other heroes, met his quote-unquote demise, only to triumph through the chaos, showing us that his place was never in question. John Johns, the shape-shifting, telepathic powerhouse, truly deserves a spotlight among Earth's mightiest heroes. At number 7 is John Constantine. Enter John Constantine, the unassuming yet pivotal member of the Justice League. Nestled within the DC universe, his mastery over the arcane and his sharp wit are his greatest assets. Constantine's recent exploits with the Justice League Dark demonstrates his prowess in thwarting even the most menacing of adversaries. His instrumental role in quelling Merlin's earth-threatening havoc showcased his resourcefulness. But it's not just about the supernatural. When the cataclysmic onslaught by Pyrrha on the multiverse unraveled, Constantine's significance truly shone. United Reunited with the League's unconventional champions, he orchestrated a daring expedition into the Starheart. This voyage unearthed the elusive ties between Pyrrha and the looming Great Darkness, unraveling a truth vital to preserving the cosmos. So without Constantine's calculated audacity, the unraveling of this intricate tapestry might have remained an unrealized endeavor. At number 6 is Detective Chimp. Detective Chimp, a seemingly unconventional member of the Justice League Dark, often flies under the radar. Nestled within DC's magical realm, Detective Chimp's inclusion might appear puzzling at first glance, yet he's a strategic asset with a rich history. Having intertwined with the Shadow Pact, he actively combated the Spectre and assumed leadership. His saga continued as he merged into the JLD, significantly contributing to toppling the enigmatic Upside Down Man. Engagements against mystical adversaries like Merlin and Xanadoth further underscore his prowess. What's remarkable is that Detective Chimp lacks innate magic. His power lies in his encyclopedic insights and deductive prowess. A nonchalant chimp on a couch with a beer might not scream hero, but this tale resonates with the essence of heroism, leveraging what you possess in unexpected ways. At number 5 is Black Canary. DC's trove of superhero houses some major players, yet few shine as brilliantly as Black Canary. Striding confidently in her signature leather jacket and fishnets, she exudes a unique aura. A formidable Justice League member, she's no stranger to clashing with villains like the Royal Flush Gang and Xanadoth. Do any of you nerds remember the Pyrrha incident? Well, it didn't end well, and thanks to Barry Allen, she returned to the fray. At number 4 is Zatanna. DC Comics is a realm brimming with Caped Crusaders and superpowered saviors, and harbors an array of mystical manipulators, none more captivatingly enigmatic than Zatanna. When the formidable Wonder Woman found herself momentarily absent, it was Zatanna who gracefully shouldered the mantle of command, guiding the Justice League Dark. Her pivotal role in orchestrating the League's standoff against the sinister Merlin can't be understated. Amidst all this arcane chaos, she deliberately relinquished control, a calculated gambit that culminated in Merlin's undoing. But this was merely the tip of her metaphysical iceberg. See, Zatanna emerged as a linchpin in the League's conquest against the formidable Xanadoth, locking horns with Pyrrha and his nefarious Dark Army. With unwavering mettle, she showcased why she deserved the crown of the League's unsung champion. Throughout all of last year, Zatanna became omnipresent, an indomitable force safeguarding the multiverse, and an unsung sentinel shaping destinies with every uttered incantation. At number 3 is Hippolyta. Hippolyta is a formidable Amazonian warrior, proud and strong. Her introduction into the Justice League as a beacon of hope and might was anticipated by many. But alas, the anticipation doesn't always translate into reality. You see, Hippolyta's presence within the League remained akin to a whisper in the tempest, overshadowed by the cosmic machinations of Perpetua and the enigmatic Batman who laughs. But fear not, for every star has its moment to gleam. Enter Wonder Woman Historia, a tapestry woven in the loom of imagination. Within its pages, Hippolyta emerges not as a mere figure in the background, but as a central force. We traverse her ancient battles, her defiance against mighty Zeus, and her valiant struggle to emancipate women from their tormentors. In this alternate avenue, Hippolyta illuminates the narrative with deserved radiance, proving that even obscured stars can blaze anew. At number 2 is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, a symbol of strength and justice who has been a cornerstone of the Justice League, yet her pivotal role often goes unnoticed. In 2022, her journey across the multiverse and involvement in the trial of the Amazons showcased her resilience. Stepping back from leading the Justice League Dark, she aided both the leagues against the formidable Xanadoth, and notably, her contribution in the showdown against Pyrrha and the Dark Army stuck out. Rescued by Barry Allen, she emerged in the final battle, emphasizing her unwavering commitment. Although in this series her time in the League was limited, the quality of her actions spoke volumes. Wonder Woman's return marked a turning point, spotlighting her often underrated significance in safeguarding the League and the broader universe. And at number 1 is Green Arrow. Green Arrow often finds himself lurking in the shadows of the limelight, but let's not underestimate the gravity of his contributions. So you see, 2022 was a really good year for Green Arrow. Not content with mere archery prowess, he silently bankrolled the League's operations, an unsung hero in the financial realm. When the Royal Flush Gang and Xanadoth posed threats, there he stood, bow drawn, ready for action. His devotion went beyond the battlefield. When Black Canary was summoned to the Hall of Heroes, uninvited was he, yet a resolute in companionship. Pyrrha's ominous Dark Army meets its match and eventually Piero's ominous Dark Army met its match as the battle ensued. Yet it was Green Arrow's sacrifice that tipped the scales, obliterating Piero's machinery and securing triumph. It just goes to show that superhuman strength isn't always about flashy costumes and booming catchphrases, so the next time you find yourself pondering the capabilities of these unsung heroes, let's remember that sometimes it's the quieter, less celebrated members who possess astonishing abilities beyond what meets the eye. And as we continue to unravel the mysteries of the superhero world, let's always keep that sense of wonder alive, because you never know what incredible feats might be lurking just around the corner, ready to amaze us.
Number 10. Joker. The Joker is infamous for his lethal nature and chaotic behavior. He uses his expertise in chemical engineering to create deadly weapons such as razor-tipped playing cards, acid-spraying lapel flowers, and deadly joy buzzers. His disregard for human life and unpredictable nature make him a formidable foe for any hero. He has caused multiple tragedies in Gotham City, leading to the death and injury of many different people. The Joker's complete lack of empathy and morals, coupled with his willingness to go to extreme lengths to achieve his goals, make him an exceptionally deadly character in the world of comics and an exceptional foe for not just Batman, but the Justice League as well. During the modern era, Joker has joined up with the Injustice League in an effort to defeat the whole premier superhero roster, and also targeted the whole team all by himself following the events of Endgame, manipulating them into mistrusting Batman and using them as weapons when he turned them against the Dark Knight. And for reference, if you're wondering when I say Endgame if I'm talking about the right publisher, I am. DC also had an Endgame event too. I know it's confusing. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that like button, especially if you like when we talk about villains. I know I love to talk about villains. I hope you love it too. Number 9. Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord's power set has changed over time, but the fact remains that when it comes to taking control or influencing others in the DC universe, he's one of the best. He has taken control of the minds of some of the most powerful heroes in DC, such as Superman and Martian Manhunter. And because his powers have fluctuated over his history as a character, so have his power levels, with him at one point being able to extend his telepathic reach to manipulate the minds of billions at a time on Earth. Number 8. Amazo. In 1960, Amazo debuted as a powerful villain in The Brave and the Bold, issue number 30, to challenge the Justice League of America, created by Gardner Fox and Mike Sekowsky. Amazo is no ordinary android though. He possesses technology that allows him to replicate the abilities and powers of the superheroes that he battles. This gives him a significant advantage in combat, making him an opponent to be reckoned with. Additionally, Amazo can even duplicate his opponent's weapons, making him an even more challenging adversary. The Flash, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern make up the roster that Amazo initially faced, and as such, these are usually the power sets he possesses by default. Number 7. Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage, also known as Vandar Adge, is a formidable adversary who has been terrorizing the world for over, get this, 50,000 years. He possesses advanced healing abilities and immortality, which he gained after coming into contact with the mysterious meteorite during prehistoric times. Despite not being known for necessarily crazy superhuman powers, he is a brilliant strategist and skilled fighter with vast knowledge in various sciences and forms of combat. Over the course of history, he has faced off against other immortals and reincarnating heroes such as Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Immortal Man, and Resurrection Man. He's also proven to be a recurring thorn in the side of the Justice League. In his quest for power and attempts to defeat the JLA, he has even allied himself with organizations such as the Injustice Society and the Legion of Doom. Beware of Vandal Savage, for he's definitely a relentless and cunning villain who will stop at nothing to achieve his goals. And he's got the experience to back it up. Number 6. Brainiac. Brainiac may have been defeated by Superman when he was kicked out of his ship and succumbed to Earth's germs, and yes, that may be the first thing that I personally think of when I think of him, but that one defeat does not define him as a weak villain, especially considering how much he has evolved over the years and how long he's been around. In fact, would you be surprised to hear that Brainiac's strength lies not only in his intellect, but also in his physical abilities? In Jeff Johns' Action Comics 5-part story arc, Brainiac, it was revealed that the previous Brainiac Superman had encountered were more android replicas of the real deal, and that the real Brainiac was far more powerful, both mentally and physically, than all of them combined. This depiction of Brainiac as a formidable foe showcases his true potential and cements his place as a top-tier villain in regards to the Justice League's Rogues Gallery. Number 5. Lex Luthor. Did you know that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster also created Lex Luthor, the notorious villain from DC Comics, just like they also created Superman? Of course, it would make sense they made Superman's #1 villain. He first appeared in Action Comics issue number 23 way back in 1940 and has been Superman's arch enemy ever since. In recent years, he's been portrayed as a power-hungry CEO of LexCorp who wants to rid the world of Superman. He claims it's because Supes is a threat to humanity, but sometimes it seems he's simply jealous of how much people love the Man of Steel. As you can imagine, with his high profile as a supervillain, he's often come into conflict with other superheroes, including Batman, and of course the entire Justice League team. It's interesting to note that despite having no natural superpowers, Lex is a genius with a knack for business and politics, and has a deep understanding of science and technology. This combined with the tech that he's developed makes him a massive threat to the heroes of the DC universe. Number 4. Anti-Monitor. The Justice League has many powerful villains, but the Anti-Monitor is one of the most terrifying. His control of the antimatter universe and the ability to threaten the multiverse make him an unstoppable force. During Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Anti-Monitor caused massive destruction, and his determination to end everything was truly terrifying. Even after this defeat, the threat remained as Necron actually held his body, taking it and repurposing it to be used as a power source for the Black Central Power Battery. It's clear that the Anti-Monitor as a villainous multiversal threat should not ever be taken lightly. The lasting impact of the Anti-Monitor and his influence on the DC universe will not soon be forgotten, as his influence and interference helped to basically reshape the entirety of the continuity and reality. Number 3. Hecate. While they may have not known it at the time, Hecate was also a very powerful Justice League foe. Here, interactions with the Justice League and her manipulation of them were not even actually recognized by the JLA themselves, but instead were taken note of by Justice League Dark, a somewhat loosely sanctioned magical division of the League that operates out of the Hall of Justice's basement and is led by Wonder Woman. While Hecate in the end would be defeated in the pages of Justice League Dark, this was only possible because Wonder Woman was able to use other, more powerful even villains, if you can imagine that, of the Justice League Dark team to defeat Hecate. Basically like pitting those against one another. Number 2. Starro the Conqueror. Starro can literally conquer entire worlds and has in fact done so before, and on more than one occasion they have also almost conquered Earth as well. Starro is a giant space starfish who in their first appearance took on the first formation of the Justice League in The Brave and the Bold issue number 28, where they threatened to, you guessed it, conquer the world! While in the Suicide Squad film, Starro the Conqueror was a cruel nickname given to Starro by the Thinker, who was charged with experimenting on the imprisoned alien. In the comics, it was a name earned by Starro because they had literally conquered so many worlds. Number 1. Darkseid. Jack Kirby, the famed writer, artist, and comic book creator, created Darkseid, who made his first appearance in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue 134 in 1970. Darkseid is a tyrannical ruler of the planet Apocalypse and is depicted as a new god in his comic book appearances. His ultimate goal is to basically gain control over the anti-life equation and to eliminate all hope and free will in sentient beings, enslaving the multiverse in essence. He is considered one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe and is known as one of Superman's most formidable enemies and the Justice League's arch nemesis. Darkseid was originally known as Prince Euaxus, the son of King Yuga Khan and Queen Hegra of Apocalypse. He seized control of the planet from his older brother Drax by eliminating him when Drax attempted to claim the fabled Omega Force, with Euaxus betraying his brother and of course taking the Omega Force for himself. With this newfound power, Euaxus' skin turned to stone and he took on a new name, Darkseid.